Okay, so if during this video... sorry, I'll start again.
Go on.
Okay. If during this podcast you hear a foghorn, it is because I've been a bit of a bitch and I have bad-mouthed someone who desperately deserves it.
It might not be a foghorn, it might be a beep, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Or construction equipment, but nevertheless...
Yeah, okay.
This is our disclaimer. This message is approved by SJN Martial Arts.
Yeah.
And the Kung Fu Podcast.
I know Kung Fu.
Show me.
You are the new student. Come closer.
You're listening to the Kung Fu Podcast presented by James Still.
I don't care if it's Muhammad, Imard, Bruce Lee.
And Steve Newby.
This is the original Five Fingers of Death right here.
But my hands are registered as lethal weapons. That means we get into a fight, I accidentally kill you, I go to jail.
Much better.
That's 80.
That's
80.
What's your level now? 80. Keep it at 80.
Oh, all right.
Because that's fine. Can you just sing a bit of Tom Jones just to get the levels right?
I'm not unusual to be... Whatever.
All right. It's not your best, I have to say.
No, I know.
I've heard better.
I guess. But why does it keep on going to 100%?
I don't know. I don't know. But just remember how you got there and what buttons you clicked and everything.
Remember how I got there.
Listen, we've got to press on. We've got to press on with the podcast number 7. We've got to go.
Okay. Let's go for it.
Okay, welcome everybody to podcast number 7, the Kung Fu Podcast. And as ever, I'm James Still, and I am joined by my teacher, Mr. Steve Newby, all the way from Canada. Hi, Steve.
Hi, James, and everybody.
Oh, that's quite formal. You don't, Normally, when you say James, you know, as a sort of like an undercurrent of you lowly idiot. But that was quite formal. I like that.
Yeah,
James.
Well, you caught me. I was just about to go for a croissant with bacon and cheese,
cheese whiz,
cranberry sauce.
Was it cheese whiz?
No, it's that white cheese. What's it called? Bloody hell!
Cheddar.
I'm sure I'm getting senile. It's the soft stuff.
Oh right, okay. Oh, I don't know.
Oh God.
I know. Cheddar and Baby Bell. That's it.
No.
All right. Anyway,
that's what you know, is it?
Yeah, that's pretty much. I'm a Philistine when it comes to cheeses.
Okay.
Well, anyway, we must press on. So, I've been. Oh, my computer's making funny noises. I've been asked by one of my students to ask you a question.
Okay.
And it's a real sort of technical kung fu question. Oh, he's sending me.
The answer's no.
Yeah. Now, he wants to know what your favourite kung fu movie is, or your favourite martial arts movie in general.
Yeah, that's quite a hard one now, because obviously when I was very young, I was 18. No, I wasn't. I was about 16. No, I was younger than that. Bruce Lee came on. Yeah, I was a lot younger than that actually, and I snuck into the cinema with my brother and so on to watch Enter the Dragon, and of course it had just come out, and I watched it 10 times on the movies. I went to the cinema 10 times to rewatch that.
Yeah, but
movie.
how many? I know what you're like. How many times did you pay?
Well, there is that, because basically what you would do is one person would go in and pay, and then come down the side and open the exit doors, the fire escape doors, which were covered in curtains to prevent the light coming in. So you would sneak in behind the curtains and then just sort of lowly slide into a seat from there. And it was 10 times I watched that. But there are some really good movies that have come out. I do like Jackie Chan's Rush Hours. I do like them. I love them.
They're funny. They're great.
I like Jackie Chan. I love Jackie Chan's approach to it.
Great,
because he just doesn't take himself seriously.
Yeah.
Although having said that, he does.
You're rustling again. You're rustling.
No, I'm just moving the microphone because I can see it coming up to red.
Oh right. Okay.
He likes the ladies. I've been told by
certain movie actors.
Certain movie actors that we have talked to, and and had dinner with, and that was nice. But yes, he said he because the ladies kind of fancied him, Jackie Chan wasn't too happy about that, and kind of
the plot thickness.
Displeased.
Am I right in saying that we almost had a dinner with Steven Seagal once?
I don't know. Did we?
Oh, I thought we did.
We could have done.
I thought there was some sort of time when we could have crossed his paths or something. I can't remember. Well, you go back years. It
might not have been him, but there's been a few.
Yeah. I can't remember.
Really can't remember.
No. Do you know you got me into the movie? You made me watch. You said, "Oh, he's quite good." It was Brandon Lee in Rapid Fire.
Yeah, I liked that film. Yeah, that was good.
As a film, it was a bit sort of,
but I just like Brandon Lee's attitude. I liked his moves.
It wasn't too bad, was it? It wasn't too bad. Yeah. So anyway.
I liked him. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, so you want to talk some proper kung fu?
Yeah. People can't tell the difference, but I know a guy who just constantly goes to see movie stars and gets his picture took with them on a regular basis. Just standing next to a movie star seems to make you, some kind of, it kind of rubs off on you, does it?
Yeah,
or something?
I guess so.
I don't know. He likes the movies. He does a little bit of extra stuff and whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, I've never been one for that. To be honest, I'm not that bothered. I'm a starving artist. Me, I'll fade into nothingness.
Yeah, same here.
We'll always have the podcast.
Yeah, well, I don't like being in front of a video, and but now I guess we've got to.
Yeah. Right. So
this day and age,
talking about Lao, I want to talk about Lao. I want to know what you think are the biggest misconceptions about Laogar, the style of Laogar. Now, you could look at it from the perspective of people currently training it, or who you've had experience, speaking with, whatever, or you can look at it from the perspective of a complete newbie looking at the style from the outside. So, what do you think? Biggest misconceptions about Lao?
Yeah, there's quite a few misconceptions about Lao, and lots of different directions, I guess. If you're giving me different perspectives, aren't you, from different angles? So let's look at it for the first most important thing that we always had a problem with in the earlier days, was that everybody thought it was a competition martial art. Everyone thought it was just kickboxing. Now, I went to a Wing Chun club, and I trained Wing Chun for a little while when I lived in Milton Keynes. Right. So it was only a short, a few classes and so on. I didn't like what they were doing. I'm sure the guy was great, and I'm sure the style was fine. But I met a guy there, and he used to do Lao, and I says, "Oh, why did you stop doing Lao? You want to do?" He says, it's just martial art. It's just competition. Right. That's all he said. He says it's just competition fighting. So it totally depends on what club you're lucky enough, or what area, if you like, you're lucky enough to fall into. If you happen to live in kind of London and Maidenhead, that kind of area, certainly in Maidenhead, you would end up doing stuff with Neville Ray, and invariably majority of that training would be competitive because that's what Neville's into. Same with Alex Barrowman. If you went over to Corby and over that kind of direction in those times, it would have been invariably majority competition fighting, and I ended up in his kind of his squad training. And we
well,
you know,
I mean, when you first started training in Lao back under your first instructor, Steve Faulkner, did you? It was predominant. It was a lot of competition fighting back then, wasn't there?
Yes. We had the same kind of stigma, if you want to call it a stigma. We had the same kind of approach. It was like, you know, train, do this, do that, or do all the basics, and then free fighting. And the free fighting wasn't designed to be traditional or anything like that. It was, once we got pads anyway, initially it was just, you know, score points fight. And we used to get like a double-decker bus come to the club, and would go around all his clubs on the way, you know, Harborne and Kings Norton and so on, and then to go down to Banbury and just have these massive open tournaments. It was just a regional open tournament, so it was all his clubs, and these were huge. He had a really big area, big organisation, and basically it was just all competition fighting. We didn't do any sticky hands or anything like that while I was with Steve. We did absolutely nothing like that. We did the forms and so on, but primarily we did the forms and went straight into fighting. But is that a bad thing? I don't think it was. I think it was a great thing, because it gave you a good sense of, you know, fighting ability, tactics and so on, but in a safe predicament. You know, when you started a fight, there were certain things you knew other people weren't going to do. So it kind of gave you a good foundation to do it, so you were able to do a lot of fighting and build up the speed and the reaction time and all that kind of thing, without too much tragedy going on. You know, without too many people getting poked in the eyes and whatever. So it was a good thing. So in the biggest thing for Lao is the fact that everyone thinks it's a competition style, and you know, for me, that's probably the biggest misconception of all.
So I want to go back on that, but when you were doing all this training, what was your sort of speciality? What did you like? What was your go-to move? That's what I want to know.
In competitions, it was sweeping. There was, without a doubt. You know, I swept everybody and their uncle. You know, everybody. In fact, I was just talking about Alex. Alex Barrowman was, you know, he ran the area Corby and that kind of area. Milton Keynes he had, and so on. And I moved to Milton Keynes with my girlfriend and lived at Milton Keynes for a while, 2 years. And in that time, I started at his club, and he just, you know, obviously was interested in watching me fighting, because I would sweep everybody that I was fighting. And he used to, when we did the squad training, he used to sit at the side of the thing and try to figure out how I got to sweep them. How could I sweep them all the time? And but I couldn't tell him, because I didn't know. It just was a natural thing to do. People would come at you, and you would, you know, a military two-step and a sweep, and that would be it. And it would work every time. Even back sweeps, reverse sweeps. I've had people on their backs, and it was a really fundamental thing for me fighting, because I'm a lazy swine and I don't like the fighting to go on for too long, because I get tired. So
it wasn't because you couldn't kick, because you were quite adept at kicking back in your youth.
I could kick. I guess I could do a little bit.
Didn't you used to kick a cigarette out of people's mouth with a spinning kick?
When I was about 13, I obviously got really into Bruce Lee and so on. And you know that bit in Way of the Dragon, when he stands there and he says, "Dragon whips his tail."
Yes,
I practiced that I practiced that so much. And yes, and then I had a trick, a party trick that, you know, I always used to say to people in the park. You know, we'd hang out in the park when I was that age, and I would say, "Kick that cigarette out your mouth," and without touching you. And yeah, I used to be able to kick people's cigarettes out their mouths.
That's funny.
Without a problem.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Honestly, when you were going back to all the sort of the competition fighting in Steve Faulkner's class, did you ever get approached to be on like you know, a fighting squad? You know, go. You know, I mean.
Oh yeah.
Because who was?
Yeah, but not in the national squad or anything like that. I was not. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't interested in competition fighting. I was interested in Kung Fu. I only did it to please Steve, because that's all he ever wanted us to do. Right. So well, as I said with Alex, I was in his squad, and then I was in his team, in his A team when we went to the nationals and so on. And we, you know, I remember fighting the Irish team, and I kicked the guy with a back kick and whatever, knocked him out the mat, and John Russell was refereeing, and he come up to me and says, "Oh, you didn't see that, did you? You didn't see what you were doing." And it was like, well, okay, it was a back kick, you know. I kind of didn't have a lot of time. He was coming at me. I did a combination of something, and then I did a back kick and knocked the guy flying, and it was great. But he didn't give me a point for it.
Who were the big players at that time when you were that we're talking about? Sort of big fighting names. Who was out and about then? Was that round about the time of Alfie Lewis, or was that
Alfie Lewis, Kevin Brewerton, those kind of people? Yeah, Choco Denham.
Yeah,
there was a few. They were
really keen, weren't they? There's a video on YouTube. Lau Gar at Pebble Mill. With and
you got Humphrey Brooms, and Mark Aston as well.
Right.
I used to go to Mark Aston's club and Dicker's club in Aylesbury. Yeah. And that was great.
Yeah.
I like Mark. He was a decent guy, and electrician he was.
All right. Yeah. Did he do work for you?
No, he didn't.
Oh.
No, he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
Who else? There's Clive Parkinson at that time as well. This was after the time of Frank Lynch and Steve Babbs and that. I mean, I do believe I fought when I was a beginner. I think I went to a team with Steve's White Sash, and we fought the Birmingham A team, and I was a white sash, and I'd never been in a fight in my life, in a competition. And I remember we stood up against them, and there was like this line of 5 black guys, and I think it was Frank Lynch and Steve Babbs and all them kind of people fighting still.
I bet.
And honestly,
were you worried?
And I hadn't got a clue, because I didn't know who they were. I never used to listen. And we stood up against them, and I had to get up to do my fight, and I started throwing everything I had, and I never hit him once. I just did everything I could I was screaming and shouting. I was absolutely knackered. And I always remember that as I was standing there fighting him, my hands thrown, I could see my hands going out in every direction and not touching anything. And his leg came like a reverse turning kick, came straight over the top of my head, and I ducked it, got up again, and it come back and hit me in the side of the head. And I'm thinking, where did that come from? Yeah. So that was great. Brilliant. That was a really good time. That was an amazing time. But of course, I was useless, and I didn't get that much better. But I did enjoy it.
Yeah. What a great foundation. Would you think that, like, doing the competition fighting first, then throw in yourself more into the traditional, I don't want to say training, but the traditional mindset, sort of more so, left you in good stead, for your career in martial arts, so to speak?
For sure, because I did understand an awful lot about competition fighting. Not that I was a competition fighter per se, but I did understand it. I was forced into training it. And then, of course, as I started my own clubs, I was kind of at the same mindset, trying to get other people to do competition. We've always right the way, up to today, we've always done competition fighting within a class. And I think I realise more now than then that it's an extremely important aspect of training. Whereas previously I thought, I don't want to do competition fighting, I just want to do kung fu. So I would, it wasn't until I went to the centre, actually. I started going to the centre.
You said that. I remember getting into an argument with one. It was a black sash in one of your classes once.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I said, waited to the end of the class, and I can't remember what he was, like a 3rd degree or something, but he had a bit of an ego on him. I said, guys, because we were doing sticking hands that class, weren't we? And I don't think any of them were that good at it. They certainly hadn't practiced. And he was a bit cheesed off with this brown sash coming and working out. I said at the end, guys, if you fancy doing some sparring, no problem, just put your kid on. We'll have 5 minutes or so. And he looked at me, Steve, and he said, I'm not here to do fighting, I'm here to do kung fu, and walked out.
Yeah. Yes, I know. Yeah, I think you've mentioned that before. Yeah,
it didn't grate me at all. I was like, oh God, I've never known such. But isn't it funny how some people they separate the two in terms of their headspace, if you like that's kickboxing, that's kung fu, when in actual fact it's the bloody
it was the same thing. Before the kickboxing kind of fad started, the fighting was in the kung fu class. There was no kickboxing going on, it was just the kung fu. And it wasn't until they started with WACO, World Amateur Kickboxing Organisation, Falsoni, that they started to do that. In 1982 or 83, I think, I went to the World Championships there because I had a girl that we were doing demonstrations. We were doing demonstrations at professional kickboxing, full contact bouts in the ring, and they would ask us to do these demonstrations of self-defense. So I would be the lowly, the moron that would have the cigarette in my mouth broken off, as if I was drunk, and I would get one of these front seats right next to all these rich people, and I would just sit there. They'd leave a seat for me. I would sit there and just pretend to be drunk and throw my insults at this girl doing a lovely demonstration in the middle. With a fan, she had a fan and beautiful kicks straight up in the air. Karen Scott. Yeah. And then and of course she was one of my proteges. I taught her to do everything that she was doing there. Mastiao helped us in learning, the kick into the groin and all that kind of thing. To make it look good,
just rolling your hips forward and all that.
Yeah, the sort of thing that you do. And so I would pretend to be completely drunk and throw insults at her. Everyone would be looking at me and thinking, "Oh my God, get rid of him, throw him out." And then just as we tried to build up the crowd. I then, sort of fell into the ring and started to pick on her. And of course I think a lot of people obviously could see it was a demonstration, but a lot of people didn't, and it was quite funny. Anyway, she would proceed to kick 7 bags out of me, and in the end we would bow, and that was it. And I also always remember that it was the news people, the television people. They had this huge camera on his shoulder who's watching the fights, and he kind of put his thing down while the demonstration was going on, and then he saw all this happening, and you could see that he just grabbed his camera as fast as he could and trying to quickly record it. And of course it was on the TV news in the evening. Wow. So yeah, it was quite good.
Didn't one time you start insulting Master Yao as part of demonstration?
That was the World Championships, the IAXA, I think it's IAXA, or it could have been IAXA World Championships. Yeah, or it could have been the WACO World Championships. I think it was a WACO World Championships. Yeah, basically same girl, same situation. I stood at the side. Every area, all the areas were roped off from the crowds. I stood in by the ropes, and I was just screaming at this girl saying, you can't do a kick for toffee, you can't do this and that, the other. Mastio come down, he grabbed me by the shoulder. I threw him off my shoulder, and you could see the crowd, you could hear the whole thing, everyone like that. Oh my God, kind of thing. Yeah. And of course he just shrugged and walked off, and I walked into the ring and proceeded to get my, crap kicked out of me. And and then everybody comes up and getting her autograph, Karen's autograph. She did really well with those things. She was a really good athletic trainer.
You did quite well on the demos, didn't you? That was one of your things.
Yeah, I was quite well known for the demonstrations with particularly with the self-defense. We did a lot of flamboyant demonstrations that involved a lot of high kicks and various things. And I had a girl that could do free cartwheels and all that sort of thing. So she was able to do a similar kind of thing. Right. I got it from Cynthia Rothrock. I was going to say, because
Cynthia Rothrock always did that scorpion kick, didn't she?
That's right. And Karen did the scorpion kick. Yeah. But Karen was extremely flexible. Right. And she could do some amazing things with her, with her kicks and so on. So, with Karen, I went to watch the some Geeko
Spectacular. Spectacular with Bill Wallace.
Yeah, martial art. That's right. Yeah. So there was Bill Wallace, and there was Cynthia Rothrock, and
George Machine Gun Chung, who just did 1,000 kicks on one leg, spinning.
That's
around.
right, but he was the aggressor against Cynthia.
Yes.
And they did the they did a thing to some pop music, I can't remember now. Gloria Estefan.
Right.
And I saw him do this thing against the leather jacket and all that kind of thing, the comedy.
Yeah.
And I looked at Karen, I says, could you do that? And she went, yeah.
But we went,
right,
demos.
That's it.
They were really good at demos, weren't they? Like, I remember you lent me that on VHS ages ago.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to it. I'd love to get a copy of that. I'll look for it on YouTube. It's not on there. But no, that was brilliant. But the comedy in a demo, people, some people take demos way too seriously, don't they?
Yeah.
Really seriously.
No, we always did them with comedy. That's why I got you training that. When you decided you wanted to do this thing, something with the walking stick, and we did it at the Festival Theatre in Edinburgh, and you did that thing with Seamus.
That was just perfect.
And that was one foot in the grave, and the moonwalk off afterwards. As an old man,
you got to moonwalk. You got to moonwalk while you're on stage.
That's on the video. That's on our YouTube channel, isn't it? Still, to watch that.
We got copyrighted on the music because it's got one foot in the grave.
One foot in the grave.
But knock yourselves out. Check it out. It was good fun actually. But I made up a walking stick form, didn't I?
Yeah.
Just with a load of jumping kicks and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And that was good fun. That was great fun. But you can see some demos though are just so stale, aren't they? And just so serious and all the rest of it. But
people try to make themselves out to be fantastic, and throw one student around or another. But the funny thing about my demonstrations was I was always the guy that got thrown about, because they were girls, and it was all about self-defense.
Yeah, but you were woke before the woke was, because one of your greatest achievements was one of your greatest proteges, I suppose, was a girl called Rebecca, who you took her to the World Championships, didn't you? Actually, fighting.
Yeah, 1991. That was. She came second in the world, and she should have come first. But in the World Championships, you can't coach. Only the one coach, which was Neville Ray, could stand there and say anything. But even he couldn't say anything while they were fighting. Right. It was very strict, and there were, my method of coaching, if you like, is to stand right next to the side of the ring, as with everybody in semi-contact. And she would come back to the ring, and I'd slap her ass and say, do this and do this, and she would be right into it. She really did really well. But she was a very humble person. Rebecca was. She started with me when she was about about between 9 and 11 or something like
Right.
that, and she was 19 when she went to the World Championships.
Wow.
And when she went to a big competition, a big multiple competition in loads of different styles there or so on. Some group did it,
Yeah.
and she was in the toilets with these two people who thought they were great, and they were saying, oh, how many fights have you had, and what have you done? And Rebecca would be going, well, I've done a bit, I'm not great, whatever. and then they came out, and she subsequently, kicked the shit out of both of them, and very decisively as well. It was like just completely and utter embarrassing for them.
Yeah.
How can you go in and boast like that? How do you boast like that?
Yeah.
And you don't even know your adversary. You don't know anything. But there's a lot of martial arts organisations are like that. They fight in house. They will never fight anyone else because they know if they did, they would get slaughtered.
Yeah.
And this is the problem with a lot of these organisations.
Oh, yeah.
And then they profess to badmouth everyone else.
Yeah.
And we're all guilty of badmouthing people, but usually it's because you have a reason.
Well, a lot of them bring it on, let's be fair.
Yeah, they bring it on themselves because the assumption, is that they are great. Well, look around the world, you've got to recognise there are some very, very good people out there, and respect to them. But, for me, obviously Lau, because we're talking about Lau, I guess, for me is an all-round style, and it's perfect for in every way as far as I'm concerned. Well, there are certain things that really could be changed.
Go on, like what then? You brought it up. Go on.
No, well, it's just the way the association has become now. It's not as it was. There are nowhere near as many professional instructors there. A lot of people have left, and I used to believe that everybody who left was greedy, and they just wanted to do this and wanted to do that for themselves and so on. But it wasn't necessarily like that.
Yeah.
People can get frustrated when you become stifled by certain things. So, but that's for another conversation,
So
I guess.
if you were, when you like, what would you? I mean, you said that Lau is a good all-rounder. So, I mean, do you think that? Why do you not think it's got the recognition then in the UK in terms of like when you say, like I'd never heard of Lau Gar before. I hadn't heard of Lau Gar until I went to your class all those years ago.
But you'd heard the word kung fu.
Yeah, heard the word kung fu. Yeah, and it's just like it's so sort of UK, granted, but unless you don't, the name isn't bandied about a lot though, is it? To be fair,
No, it isn't. But it's been so successful around the world. People in the know about it. But I think the problem with using the name Lau is simply the only reason they use it, I guess, is because they don't want to be tarred with the same brush that other kung fus have been tarred with because of their reputations. Now, I can't specify or clarify various groups and so on, but only from my own experience and what I've seen. And I have seen some diabolical organisations, and you can't help but decide. It's like watching a movie. You're going to choose, the guy who's the best actor is going to get the Oscar. There are some runners up, and then there are some that will just never see the red carpet at all because they're bloody useless. And often, even as a layman, you can watch a movie and you can say, he's not a very good actor. But and it's the same with martial arts. You can watch people who do martial arts, and even without being able to do it yourself, you're going to hurt yourself. You do that again, kind of thing.
What do you think? Going sort of back to the original question about misconceptions about Lau. What's the worst sort of advice or technique someone's shown someone else that you've seen? Obviously, I'm not saying name names, but I'm just saying pick up an example, because like how you always said to me that Master Yao used to says, a corrected technique does not mean it's a correct technique. Do you know what I mean? Like some people have massive misconceptions about the syllabus or the forms or whatever. What do you think? What stands out for you as sort of like one of the key problems?
Yeah, there are a lot of people have different reasonings from all sorts of walks of life or all sorts of areas. They have different instructors, they have different upbringings with those instructors, and their instructors have different upbringings. And remember, because it's such a huge organisation and a diverse organisation in the early days, spreading the whole of the UK all over the place, a lot of them never got to see the centre. That's why Mastiao insisted on taking black sashes, not so that he could see the people taking their black sashes, it's so that he could see what they were learning from their instructors.
Right.
And that's why he insisted on having brown sash courses, because if you don't see them at brown sash course, then you're not going to be able to stop them taking a grading when they have no ability at all, and it's unfortunately them that are going to be paying for that black sash grading. So when it comes down, and when you come down to brown sash courses, he gets the opportunity to see how you're being taught. And it's the same with me. When I started up Scotland and I built up a big organisation, I would do gradings, and I had specific uniforms for each area. So Fife had a particular colour band on their uniform, and so did Edinburgh, and so did Inverness, and so on, and the borders. They all had different uniform bands. And so what happened was, you would see people come in, do their stuff, and I would instantly know who their instructor was. But I was also, obviously, if one person's making a mistake, it's his mistake. But when 10 of them are doing it the same, it's their instructor's mistake.
Right.
And that's how you are able then to go to the instructor and correct them. Well, of course, I was able to do that because it was within, Scotland, within a certain area where I could get people together.
A catchment area sort of thing.
If you like. It was a huge area, and it took time to do it, but it was
you could get people
a lot more difficult. Yeah, it was a lot more difficult for people down here. In Birmingham to do it. I keep thinking I'm at home. I keep thinking I'm in Birmingham.
No, you just got to look outside and breathe that fresh air,
Yeah, absolutely. So it was. It was always a problem. So people come to gradings. I'll give you a couple of examples if you like.
Go on.
When we train with sticks, the pole we use, although most people refer to it as a 6-foot pole, it's actually called an eyebrow pole. And the reason it's called an eyebrow pole is because the eyebrow is the height of your reach. So both your hands gripping the pole, either end of the pole, when you put the pole against to your foot, and line it up to your eyebrow, it will be exactly the same height, and that's called an eyebrow pole for a bloody reason. So when you teach people to use their pole or their quan or whatever you want to call it, their stick, to be able to defend themselves and to be able to do the techniques, they're able to perform it in a much safer and better way, because they can reach both sides of the pole, because it's a double-headed pole, so you can use both sides of it. You're swinging from one end to the other. If you can't do that, and you end up with an extra bit of pole left over because you can't actually reach the end, the problem is the other guy now can use that against you, and he can either grab your pole and twist your wrist using the end of that pole.
Acts as a lever, doesn't it?
It acts as a lever. Or you're going to hit yourself with it because it's in the way. So you need that pole to be your weapon. And I have always been a believer of making sure that everybody has a weapon that suits them, and therefore they can become much better and technically better at that weapon, which is why I invented, if you like, not invented, but changed the way that our butterfly knives. So we had a guy in Scotland who would make the butterfly knives, Jim Cairns, who would make the butterfly knives. He would hand make our quandos, and he would hand make our tiger forks. When he made the quando, I gave him a specific specifications to create the way we had our butterfly knives. So firstly, they had round metal as instead of flat metal that you would buy in the shop,
right,
and they had a slight deviation on the tang, so it sort of stuck out a little bit, and then they always had a round end to the grip, so when you used them, they were never wearing your hands out, because with the ones that you could buy in the shop, you ended up with these massive cuts in your thumb, or in the center of your palm, where the edges of the metal, because if you kept on training with them, you would eventually not be able to train with them because they bloody cut your hands open. And so people didn't become so skillful with them because they couldn't use them as often. And so we were able to devise much better forks, and we sold them all over the association. People would really like. They're the best weapons. Jim made the best weapons. Handmade. He was a mechanic, and he did it well. He worked in a coach builder's shop.
Okay.
And
so he was fabricating all that. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And he used all that. He used material.
Talking about redesigning weapons. Sorry, just jog my memory. Didn't the monk who taught Lau the style all those years ago redesign the tiger fork? Is that right?
Well, that is
allegedly.
It is the story that goes that the reason Lau, who's Lao Sam Now, who means three-eyed Lau, is his nickname.
What's his real name?
Well, that's a kind of a secret that we keep. We retain that secret, and I'll explain to you about that secret in a minute. Okay. But anyway, Lao Sam Now was a tiger hunter, yes, and he obviously had been caught out with this scar on his head, and the monk is said to have developed his weapon to be much heavier and stronger, and so he was able to learn to use it in a completely different way, and of course as part of as the weaponry within the confines of warfare as well. So, but in terms of his real name, okay, and this is something that we all promise to sustain as a secret. If you suggest that you do Lao in wherever you are, and you go, yeah, yours is not the proper Lao, mine's the proper Lao, I do this Lao, you do some other Lao, then I can turn to you and say, write down 5 names, and within those 5 names, the real name of Lao Sam Now. And if you can write that name down, then I know that you understand Lao. But if I can point out that name, you will also know that I know Lao. So most people would not be able to, well, very few people know that name, and so this is why we keep it a secret.
It's like a credibility check, isn't it?
Yeah,
like a credit
because people will say, well, I do Lao, and you'll say, well, do you know the name of the founder?
Right.
And they'll go, Lao Sam Now, and we'll say, no.
Right.
No. Do you know his real name? Yeah.
Well, hang on a second. How do you know that whatever his real name is his real name?
Well, I have to go by Master Yao, who told it me and told everybody.
Yeah, but what if Master Yao made it up? I'm just saying. I'm putting a question out there. How do you
That's
know?
absolutely fine. That's absolutely fine. But at least we know that everybody that trained with Master Yao will know the same name. Okay. So if they come out of the closet and say, "No, I learned Lao. This is Lao. I learned it from whatever."
Yeah, but you can imagine someone looking at this out from the outside who doesn't really care for sort of the philosophy and all that and the secrets. He'll go, "Oh, he's just making that up." He just
goes along.
Yeah, well, that's what they would say, isn't it?
Yeah, of course they would.
They would say that.
But they can. It's okay. It's not a problem. They can. Most people don't get to that anyway. And how often would that happen?
No, I don't.
To be honest. And many people have accused Mastio of making stuff up, and many people very close to him have accused of him making stuff up, and so on, and then exaggerating it. I know of a guy that said, "Oh yeah, Mastio's grandfather fighting tigers." He had no clue about the history.
Oh, wow.
He had absolutely no clue about the history of Lao, and he wasn't interested either. He'd just come out with this crap that would suggest that it was all made up. Well, I don't see the reason to make up history. I don't see the point in it.
He might as well just not say nothing if he's
exactly.
making it.
Yeah. So the thing is, you can't train with someone for 40 years and never hear different things. You're always going to hear the same stories.
Yeah.
And that's when you know they're true. He doesn't change them from 40 years ago to now. Those stories have never changed. Yeah. And let's face it, if you want to fabricate a story, you're going to really try to exaggerate it later to try to force it to be true. So
well, that's why I know the one about you wearing stockings and suspenders is true, because you just keep going on about it.
Yeah, I'll never live it down. My wife told me that the Rocky Horror Show was going to be on, and I have to say this now, James, because everyone else is going to be going, what?
Listen, we're lucky if we've got like 3 people listening to this thing, so it really doesn't matter.
So I went to the Rocky Horror Show, okay, but I thought I was going to a private party. My wife says, she wasn't my wife at that time, and she's lucky she ended up that way. But so basically she says, we're going to a private party. They've got a Rocky Horror Show theme, so you've got to dress up. So I agreed to wear the stockings and the suspenders, but I had a white doctor's coat over it, and at the time I had a ponytail.
Hey?
I had a ponytail. Yeah, I had hair.
Did you?
And anyway, we drove around the Hippodrome, past around the square right where Chung Ying's is and so on in Birmingham, and I looked up, I saw her at the Hippodrome, I went, oh look, Rocky Horror Show's on, let's get some tickets. And she went, what, these? And she showed me the tickets, and it turned out that we were actually going to the show, and I had dressed up. Oh my God, mind you, it wasn't as bad as her brother. He had a basque on, and we got out of the car, and a guy reversed his car, smashed straight into the car behind him. He was looking at Graham. Now I don't know what he was thinking, but Graham wasn't the greatest looking woman. But anyway,
geez, that's funny.
We digress, don't we? We digress
slightly. Just slightly.
Quickly.
I don't know what we were 1 minute we were talking about Mastio, next,
and next you're talking about stockings and suspenders, James. Now, as far as Mastio is concerned, I have absolutely no qualms about it. I have total respect for him. I have total belief in him, and so on and so forth. There obviously with all fathers and with all teachers, you sometimes have misunderstandings and disagreements, and I've had my share and so on, and I did particularly have one kind of disagreement with him once, which is quite funny actually. It's many years ago when Rebecca Drew, who we mentioned earlier, she was the first person to get a black belt in the kickboxing, not the kung fu.
Right.
She was into the kickboxing, so she got a black belt in the kickboxing, and I went down to the centre and I collected her certificate from Mastio, and when I looked at the certificate it said his merits, he's this, he's that, and I went, well, shouldn't that be their, THEIR?
Yeah.
Their merits, so it can refer to both male and female. And he goes, no, that's plural. And I went, no, that's belonging to their. He went, no, that's plural. No, it's belonging to, THEIR. It's their, this, it's their ability, their thing, so it can refer to men and women. He went, I taught English in Hong Kong, and I'm telling you. And I thought, okay, shut up, Steve. You're only English.
Oh, that's brilliant. Mind you, though, you've got to give it to Mastio. I remember when he came down to Bromyard once and gave us all a talking to. And you know, it was great. It was great. It was nice, just meet and greet, wasn't it? It was the first time I only really spoke to him.
Yeah.
And he was talking about learning English, and he was saying, like, well, you imagine my position when you've got the month of March, Soldiers March, you light a cigarette with a march.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
Yes, it was one of his jokes.
Yeah.
That's another thing I've heard for 40 years.
Yeah, that must be true.
Yeah.
Honest to God. That's pretty. What's the one standout sort of memory in terms of your training? And I don't mean sort of your achievements, I mean in your training. You know, like a breakthrough moment or a great sort of, you know, epiphany or whatever, you know?
When I took my first black sash, I was really chuffed about that, obviously. I was the only one out of 3 from Steve's club that passed. The other 2 unfortunately failed, and one of them got stabbed because in those days we would use real knives in the knife defence.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Of course. I was thinking.
Well, he tried to block the knife.
I was thinking he left the centre in sort of a half and got mugged. But no, all right. I'm talking about the knife defence.
Yeah,
it is Birmingham.
Yeah. No, it was in the training. When he was doing his grading, he tried to defend against a knife coming down at him, and he raised his hand to try to block it, but blocked the knife as opposed to the hand or the arm. And it cut straight across, you know, just below his little finger. It cut a gouge straight along his hand there. Yeah. And of course, Mastio then just got some powder out, put it over the cut, and said, "There you go, you failed," kind of thing. So he obviously failed. Because he got cut. Yeah. So yeah, we did. We used to train with real knives. It was important.
Excuse me.
We had a course about knife defence actually.
Right.
It was just covering knife defence, and 60 people on the course. 3 of them went to hospital.
Wow.
Yeah, including Jason, my friend Jason Crabtree,
right. Okay.
a fellow Guardian. Yeah, he got stabbed in the arm.
Wow.
He had a nice big gash in the inside of his arm, which was lovely.
What do you think? While we're talking about knife defence, right? Mm-hmm. So in Laugard we do part of the syllabus is knife defence.
Yeah.
I personally think in this day and age that I don't see many people training it hard. So
yeah,
as far as I can, because I don't train it hard because, you know, situation I'm in or whatever, but I wouldn't feel sort of confident going out there and think, right, I can take on someone with a knife now. Now, I get that it's not about that. It's about sort of understanding the principles behind it and being aware of your range increases if you've got a knife, taking your fingers away, all the rest of it. What do you think about the relevance of knife defence when you're, you know, in today's modern world?
Well, you kind of knocked the nail on the head when you said I don't think I'd be confident in using it, and so you don't train it. But it's the other way around. If you train it, then you should become confident. But it's not about confidence. It's about reaction time and spontaneity. There's that kinesthetic perception you require. Yeah. Someone appears with a knife. You may not even recognise the knife. That's the biggest problem, of course, which is why knife defence is so dangerous. You may not even see the knife. Yeah. So in your perception of training and in your developmental state, as you develop your fighting skills, it isn't just about what you can do in the relative state, your ability to move. It's about your understanding of the world, and therefore, you know, you've got to be a little bit more worldly in the sense that, okay, there's someone standing next to you, he's aggressive. If he's got his hands hidden, he's a dead man, because you have got to hurt him before he moves those hands, because he could well have a knife. If he's got his hands out and makes his fists or his open hands or whatever, you can see he hasn't got a knife at that point in time, so that's when you need to act. So it's all about your preparation as well, and not just about your skill, but your preparation. And now, in terms of the knife defence that we train, All they are, just the same as the hand blocks and kick blocks, all they are basic scenarios.
Yep.
They're giving you the opportunity to practice repetitively certain attacks. Just like the sets, you must adapt those movements.
Right.
Just like the sets have 6 different uses minimum for each technique, you must adapt those techniques. So using a knife against you all the time, you must find ways. And because nowadays, of course, you use a rubber knife, you can get stabbed as many times as you want and go back to the drawing board and learn and learn and learn. But if you don't practice it, and you even with a rubber knife, you don't bother practicing, then of course you're never going to get any better. So there's no point in giving people, to be honest with you, it's just the chain of thought in those days. If it's not a real knife, you're not going to react properly. Well, the problem is, you also haven't practiced enough, so it's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
But when you've got a rubber knife, you've got no excuse. You practice in every different shape or form. Find out what works, what doesn't. Learn the hard way. Get hurt a lot with that rubber knife. Then change it to a wooden one. Now, you could end up with a big gouge in your face because the wooden isn't going to be giving you any, defense. And then eventually go for that real knife. But I'm only saying that to you. I'm not saying that to anyone else, because they'll go, Steve said on his podcast that we should use a real knife, and I got stabbed 60 times while I was trying to defend myself. And so, obviously people have got to be careful. And there's all that litigation and so on and so forth. So
I mean, the reason I sort of bring up the knife defense and that is and what I said at the start was, I think a lot of people when they see either hand blocks, kick blocks, or knife defense in pre-arranged movements, essentially 2-man forms, right? They are under the impression that that is what you are supposed to do. And do you know what I mean, right? So when I say I wouldn't feel confident using the techniques, I guess what I really meant was I wouldn't feel confident that those specific variables in the equation, and whereby someone picks up, goes over the hand with a knife and comes down, would happen to me, right? So I would not think, right. But I know exactly what you're saying. You're saying take the individual movements and you're looking at them like you would a set, you're training them individually, because every one of those techniques in them works. We know that, and I bet you there's people out there who've had arms broken and a lot training them. But the scenarios, it's going to take a lot of
it is just a scenario there. That's the problem. But just like in the sticks, just the same thing.
Right.
The most important thing about doing a movement, a practical movement in a one way, is you become so expert at it, so perfect at it, if you practice hard enough. It's the mistakes you recognize.
Yeah, exactly.
You no longer recognize the actual thing itself. You're doing that naturally. It's the mistakes. So what happens is it makes your brain suddenly aware that something isn't the same. So then you keep doing that. Eventually you will make a few mistakes, especially if you train until you're absolutely shattered.
Well, that's
the mistakes will come. I mean, it's like doing the Deutschat. When we do the stick form, the clashing sticks, Deutschat, I think it's 3rd degree. When we perform that, we don't do it as a form one way and then the other way, then stop. That's for a grading. When you train it, you must train it forwards, then in defense, then in attack, then in defense, then in attack, then in defense, then in attack, constantly until you become, fitter, obviously, but also you become far more skillful, and you never ever tell them when you're going to throw the technique. So you could do stand about, you do it as almost as if you're sparring, but you're doing it in a set measured way, so that each technique follows another. But sooner or later you make mistakes, and it's how that person deals with a mistake that makes you better all the
because
time.
your heightened awareness. And
Yes.
if you watch people who are very, very aware doing, for example, the hand blocks and the kick blocks, scenario 1, I step punch, scenario, I will step back, block, palm up, block, and punch back. But if you watch people who are really, really on the ball, they're attentive, that attacker might attack you with the wrong punch, but they'll still defend it. And that is when you're sort of slowly surpassing or transcending the syllabus into the realm of application and a bit more understanding.
Exactly, and most people never get further than the syllabus. And they just want to pass the syllabus, get their gradings and go home.
Yeah, right.
And that's the difference between people who hobbyists, martial arts movers, and martial artists.
Well, I always say it's the people who want to appear to be martial artists rather than the people who want to be martial artists. And unfortunately, in today's day and age, it's not all the time your fault because people have got lives, haven't they? But there's a lot of people out there who don't put enough time in or whatever, and they just think they're better than they are, and the ego.
The worst thing is to have overconfidence. But the thing is, the more you train, the less you think about it, and it's hopeful that you've trained enough that if you are in a situation where suddenly someone is behind you, suddenly someone is in front of you, screaming abdabs at you, or someone is in an alleyway and is about to, you're well aware of it. That's the thing. You've got to be. So when you train, you've got to be training seriously. But that doesn't mean to say you can't have fun, because you have fun learning, and then as you develop the learning, the fun becomes secondary. Initially, the fun should be the most important thing.
Oh yeah.
Because otherwise, you're not going to keep it. You're not going to keep coming. If you don't enjoy your training, you're not going to keep coming. And the one thing that will make people keep coming is being part of a family and being part of a great fun group, a friendly group. And you take that away from them, put a big solid thing, and people just don't make it. They lose the interest, not because they can't do it, but because they can't see why they should. So you've got to give them a purpose to get there, and then you can start introducing them into things. It's like trying to teach a child to read. They'll look at the book and go, what for? There's loads of pictures, I don't need to read. You give them a reason to read, and they'll thank you for it later.
But how much of it do you think, like, the problem with people training is? I mean, I always think that the worst people to teach are adults, right? Right, because all of them are friggin' right.
Can't you?
Yeah, but it's not.
There are so many martial arts today who actually don't want to teach adults. All they do is they want to just give the kids loads of appraisal, throw beanbags at them, and then tell the parents how little Johnny was really doing well. He was ready for his next 35th grade.
Oh, what you mean with the 10 tags on his belt already?
Yeah, he's ready for the next one now. That'll be 40 quid, please.
No, I mean, listen. I think when I see kids, I don't judge kids with martial arts. I think, hey, as long as they're having a great time, that's the main thing. Because I mean, when I was teaching kids, like we did have some semblance of syllabus, but to be honest, we just had loads of fun, just playing. You've got
to have fun. Teaching kids is like herding sheep. Yeah. Basically, all you got to do is stay on top of them. That's all you got to do. As long as you can stay on top of them and they don't control you, you control them. Then that's good. They all follow in the same way.
I remember one kid. He put a groin thing all over his face because he thought it was head guard. I was like, no. Mr. Steele. Yeah. Oh dear. No, get off. But
teaching kids is a great satisfying thing to do. It really does. You can see how amazing some of them can be as well, and some of them are just phenomenal. You see some kids and they're just phenomenal. They've got a passion for it and they love it, and they're far better than a lot of adults. Particularly they're fitter, they're more flexible. They can do so much more. But and if they go on, as long as they don't get completely destroyed by the too much training, and when they've got it and they don't take themselves too seriously, and they can build a character with it as well, then they'll be brilliant, absolute brilliant. So
but I mean don't get me wrong, I love teaching Lau, but some, I always felt that teaching adults, they've got so many preconceptions of it. Their ego, they don't want to do this, don't want to do that. You have to sometimes be dance around, be overly sensitive sometimes, and I understand that. It's all about, like, being a teacher, being an instructor is many, as many levels to it. Like, you have to be like a brother, a father, a sister, whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, a lawyer.
Yeah, but that's the problem with me. You see, I'm so long in the tooth now. I look at people with a very sarcastic kind of attitude.
But you've always been sarcastic.
Okay, yeah, but I scream and shout at them and everything, but I make sure they have fun as well. Yeah. And the thing is, when people, I do enjoy people like that. There are, they want to question everything, because it's almost as if I have to keep on proving what I'm teaching works. Yes. And as long as I can do that, then I'm teaching the right thing. Yeah. If I can't prove that it works, then it doesn't work. So I've got to show that it does, and so far in the last 45 years I've been able to do that, so it's not a problem. And I can see where people are coming from, and they come from other martial arts. They've been stung before, they're very wary, and particularly when they come from a style that everyone said, oh, this is the most ultimate fighting style on earth, and then they come to you and you'd go, for God's sake, please. I remember a guy, you were talking about him the other day, and I'll mention him because it's in a friendly manner. Ali Blakey, he's doing something himself now, whatever. He was training with me in Scotland. He came to me when he was 19. He's 39 now, I think. And he came to me as a beginner, and I says, have you done anything before? He says, yeah, I've done ninjutsu. I went, ninjutsu? I says, you couldn't be very good. I saw you come in.
Oh, I love it.
And that's just the way I am, I guess. So, I lose a lot of people like that. But he went on to get his 4th degree, I believe. Yeah. Which I took for him. Yeah. As well.
Was that when Master Yao was late?
No, Master Yao had gone home.
Oh, had he?
Yeah, it was the centre. They'd all gone home, and of course he came from all the way from Scotland. He flew, and he'd phoned Master Yao and says, well, can you make sure there's a stick for me? Yeah. So we sent him an email, make sure there's a pole for me, because I can't carry one of those on the plane. Yeah. So he came, and I found Master Yao, and he said, we're closed now. I says, well, Ali's coming down to take, to do his 4th degree from Scotland. Yeah. He says, we always finish at 1 o'clock. There was, variables within this, the confines of this story.
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, it turns out that Master had gone home, and he phoned me back, and he says, I remember, now, would you take the grading for me?
Right.
So I ended up taking Ali's 4th degree for him. And and I'm in America, obviously I've had to take John's gradings, but I always videoed them. I videoed Ali's as well. I always video them, because they didn't just want me to see their grading, they wanted Master Yao to see it, so I videoed it and I showed it them. Whether Master Yao watched it or not, I don't know, but I always videoed John's, and I always videoed Ali's.
What I always thought was kind of funny, but I don't know if so I thought it was funny. So you've had quite a few students in the past, right? Mm-hmm. And like myself, like I was 19, same age as Ali when I first walked in to see you, and you put a question to me, but anyway, you got me hooked. But I've been with you, like, obviously there were some gaps when I went off and joined the army and whatnot. Yeah. And obviously, we've had the odd falling out now and then, but it wasn't anything like, it wasn't anything like major, was it? I was just threw my toys out the pram and whatnot. But I accredit my entire learning to you, right? Like no one else. I mean, I put in a lot of effort, I have in the past, but how many students have you had throughout your teaching career where you've taken them all up to Black Sash, right? And then they've suddenly gone, I don't, you know what, Steve? I'm going to go and train at the centre in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And what?
That's not a problem. That's never been a problem for me.
But, okay, all right. Is it not a problem? But do you not think that there's like, sometimes they should continue to train? Like, you know, I mean, because what you're doing is you're always going back and then teaching beginners and beginners and beginners and beginners, which is what you love and what made you a fantastic teacher.
Yeah.
But do you ever feel like the draw to want to just think, I wish you would just train with me or whatever?
No, I don't want them just to train with me.
I don't mean that, but it would be nice.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. I guess I know what you're saying, but I mean, when I look at students and you're teaching students, it's like having kids. You've got to go back out. You've got to go out into the world, and you've got to discover things. But I'm always confident that they will come and they say, you know what, I really enjoy this. I mean, you're one as an example. You'd always come back to realise that, this is, it gives you a great sense of meaning and great sense of reality, if you like. What we teach is genuinely authenticated and good tactics, good strategy, and so on. So we don't profess to be kind of mystics and whatever. I don't profess to be anything special. I just know that whatever I teach, it works. It's a genuine interpretation of what Lao is, and I have no pretense about it. I've taught a lot of people to Black Sash, many people to Black Sash, and never had a failure but one.
All right.
One guy who insisted he wanted to take his Black Sash. He came to my house. He spent 7 hours, or rather I spent 7 hours with him, watching his syllabus, convincing him.
Oh, I know what you mean.
Yeah, convincing him, what?
Yeah.
Do not take this Black Sash.
Yeah.
You will fail. And it was the next day, and you know what? He says, I'm going to try it anyway. He went, and he failed. And he broke my record, because I never had a failure until...
Wow. Well, I tell you what, he in Hereford is actually, I think he gave himself a Black Sash. He must have ordered it off the internet.
Well, he went to Pete Hornby's club and told them that he was training at Worcester. And yet he was from Hereford. But the reason he said he was training with Worcester, because at the time he was running it, he had left me.
Yeah.
And so he was training with Glenn. And then his students left him because they wanted to stay with the BKFA. And he got kicked out,
right?
And so Matt stopped training there, started going up to Stafford, and claimed that he was training at Worcester, but it had closed.
Wow.
And that's what he
he's a law unto himself. They all were.
But the thing is, Pete Hornby wouldn't let him even train in the class half the time. He just says, go there and practice, stay on the side and practice. All the time he was on his own. Yeah. We have that from good authority. Yeah. He just, it was a complete wasted. But that's, let's not diss him. Let's.
Just go on his YouTube channel. You see what we mean.
I've seen it. I'm just, it's a great example of. It's a very good example of how students will be totally respectful. Totally, they look at you as if you're God, and they just totally believe you, and then they'll go through the training for years and years. Then they start to become skillful, because the more skillful you make them, the harder it is for them sometimes to understand reality if they've got the wrong character. Many people, you will discover, will change, and they will suddenly think, wait a minute, I want, maybe they get more passionate, maybe they want more and more and more, and then they start going off in all sorts of different directions, discovering different people, and let's face it, James, there's a lot of people out there who will benefit from good students, And if they can take good students, or if they can influence these students, then they will. And these students have absolutely no idea, and they just go with them.
Suffer. It's the students who suffer at the end of the day.
It's not only the students that suffer, but in the case of people like, and I don't mind mentioning his name, but the students went with him in the club that I'd given him.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I feel for those people because they honestly believe that he's told them something, and he was supported by people that did have a financial interest in what he did. So that's the way it is. That's life.
You almost want to sort of look at it and take politics out of martial arts, but no matter where you are, they're always going to find their way back in, aren't they?
Yeah. Politics. You buy a banana, you can talk politics.
That's what you said in the first one. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it's such a shame, isn't it? When but I mean, I've always been sort of, my heart and my soul is about preserving the Lao, as best as I can, because I always think that some people are fighters, some people are technicians, some people are both, and I always wanted to sort of really carry on something, but understand a bit of everything and carry on your sort of legacy. But
I'm a teacher at heart, James, and there's always been my problem. I've never been I didn't want to be an instructor particularly, or a controller, administrator,
but you're
whatever.
So good at it, except for administering. Not administering clubs, because you're really good at that. The problem was you put a lot of trust into people.
Yeah,
and I think you trusted too much. I
think fun was my first. The important thing for me was for people. We had fun, and I'm a bit of a if you like, I sort of approach life in a comedic way, and that's always been the problem. But I started in Birmingham. My first club was as a yellow sash, 5th grade, teaching for Steve, and then from there I went to live in Milton Keynes. My next class was in Buckingham, where I took my black sash. Before that, actually, I was doing Telford and Shrewsbury and Bridgnorth and Newport and. Did I say Shrewsbury? I don't know. And then I went after that. I did Coventry and all those kind of areas down there, Stratford-on-Avon, Leamington Spa, and so on. And then I did the Buckingham, whatever. And then I went to Scotland for the BKFA, and I taught all of Scotland, and 26 clubs or so up there. Then I went to America and taught there because the guy was from Scotland and he was desperately needed to continue to train. I offered to fly over. He flew me over. And every so often I would go over there for 3 weeks or more and train and teach him in his garden, which is huge, and it's bloody hot as well in Missouri, and he got to his 3rd degree from that, I believe, or he's ready for his 3rd degree, and and then where did I go? Oh yeah, Canada. And then I just thought, but I just felt I wanted to keep on teaching the world. I really want people to know about Lao. And but people are always, the thing is, I've always been approachable, I guess. I've blown my own trumpet. I go to the summer course every year, and every year I would always camp, for the simple reason that people would always come around your campsite, and beginners would come, or anyone would come, and they would just talk to you, and maybe we'd go through some techniques and so on. We'd really enjoy a conversation, and I would just try to give people the information. That's how I ended up in Scotland, because the Scottish would come over. They would camp a few tents away from me. They would walk over. There was only 2 of them, with Tom Carey, their instructor, and they would come over and they would talk to me, and then every year they'd see me, and then one day one of them said, why don't you come up to Scotland to do a course? And so I went up to Scotland with the intention to stay over 2 weeks. Took my wife, who was pregnant, and then we went up to visit them again, and that's when she was going to have the baby. So we went up halfway to meet them. We went to Morecambe to meet them, and they continued to start building the area. And in the meantime, I was still living in Birmingham, and I was travelling from Birmingham, 700-mile round trip. every Sunday.
Wow, yeah.
And coming back on the Monday, so it's 350 miles there, 350 miles back, 6 hours.
Yeah. I remember going for a few trips in your Land Rover with you to Scotland, but that was way after, obviously. But
yeah, I took a lot of people with me. Yeah,
well,
I just needed the company.
Well, I just remember you putting on Eartha Kitt and I don't want another man. Where is my baby? And I was thinking, what? You're listening to Eartha Kitt, Batman Turner Overdrive, and talking kung fu, and life couldn't get much better.
Yeah, I do like Queen. I do like Genesis. I do like, I like everything. Basically, I like Beethoven. I like anything.
See, that is when I
like opera.
Yeah, but that was funny. I think, and the one time I thought, actually, you're human, was when you ate a bacon bap and with an egg in it, and it just went all down your top, and you
yeah, and that's what they call a banjo sandwich.
A banjo,
banjo sandwich, because you lift up you look down at your chest and you start stroking your chest with your right hand while you're holding the thing out away from you with your left hand. So your right hand is strumming and the left hand is holding the neck of the guitar. In effect,
all I'm saying was Mr. Miyagi never ate a bacon sandwich and had egg down him.
No, that's true. No.
Why?
Yeah.
You certainly don't conform to it, Steve. But then that's one of the greatest strengths about you, I think, is and if you've got the right character to recognise, not that I have got the right character, but I'm very grateful for everything you've ever taught me. I mean that.
Well, that's nice.
Well,
Yeah, I wish a few other people would be. I did have one guy. One guy says to me in an email, "You're what was it now? Greedy, lazy, and not proactive, reactive, not proactive." He said that in an email, and this is a guy that had been with me for 12 years, who had never started a club on his own, because they were all my clubs that I'd gave him.
Yeah.
He had never had an instructor, except one guy he argued with and then he left.
Yeah.
Okay, and he took those clubs from me, taking my business. And this is making me laugh, this now. Yeah. And of course I was lazy, but I was the one that built up Scotland during the time that he was with me, because I built up Scotland and then come back down to Hereford and all those kind of areas. Started building Hereford and Worcester and all those kind of areas then. And this guy, he just suggested these things, and I thought, how is this possible? You have never run a club except the clubs of mine that I given you, so therefore you stole everything, because you then badmouthed me and you took the students, and half those students went back to the BKFA because they didn't want to be with you. And then apparently I'm reactive and yet not proactive, and yet I built up Scotland to be one of the biggest regions of the British Kung Fu Association. More people from Scotland went to the summer course and to the nationals than any other area, at any point in time. Ooh. So
I think we want to get the handbags out right now.
No, it is funny the way people react. It's very funny how some students can be so bitter.
I've been reading a book, right, by the great boxing trainer, in my opinion, Brendan Ingle, who was the coach of Nazim Hamid. And Johnny Nelson and Harold Bomber Graham, fantastic guy. And for me, he's like a martial art master. But in boxing, he was all the things you want. Anyway, I'm reading this book, and he had this great quote where he said, because you're not the only one. I'm sorry to tell you're not the only one this happens to. But he says about some of the people he's had that's left and have done the dirty on him and whatnot. He says, first they use you for the knowledge, so to speak. Then they accuse you. like they'll say you're lazy and whatnot, and then they'll abuse you, and from now on you're the worst enemy, you're the worst thing in their life, and it's so true, isn't it? So true. Like,
yes, it's so true.
What has happened to you is nothing new. It's just human nature, I guess. People just, incredible.
Oh, you get people coming back years later and going, you know what, I really regret what I did, and I'm sorry, and then would you do this for me? Would you just piss off? Oh, sorry, are we still alive?
Yeah.
No, it's such a diabolical situation where people can apologise several times and then still think they're right. And yeah, but no, you're right. I'm not the only person who's had this happen to me. I think I'm unique in the sense that it's just the way the association is today. It's just it operates in a completely different way. So I never got help.
Yeah.
I never got assistance. I never got recognition, and so therefore that enabled these kind of people to be able to go to their students and say, "Well, look, we're in the right. He's not done anything. No one's said anything to us." But of course, that just makes it worse for the students in the end. But I mean, Mastio's had these same problems years and years, many, many more times than me. And,
I mean, I was
and
watching
every other instructor has as well.
But it's funny. I was watching an interview with Alfie Lewis on YouTube. The great fighter, no doubt about it, fantastic. But he did not have a kind word to say about Mastio. And it was like, oh Jesus. In fact, when he got up on stage to be interviewed by this guy, the first thing he said was, F Jeremy Yao or whatever. And it's just like, wow, oh God, they're bitter. So it's been going on years, isn't it? But
I think it's how people respond. It's and how people react to that response as well. So, I mean, the way I dealt with it basically is I just left the country. The way I dealt with it basically is I didn't kind of respond, and I just asked people this and asked people that, and of course while I'm sitting there intransigent, all that's happening is these people are building their case and loading their kind of reputation with my students, and the students that I've given to them, the students that I've given them the club and said, right, this is a club for you, this is how, and of course you then you build them up, and you need them to have confidence, so you try to get the students to see them as the instructors, and you try to pull back so that you're no longer the instructor, so that you're just an administrator somewhere in the the ether, and obviously they can either talk nice about you or they can badmouth you, and people choose to do that. They do that, and it doesn't make them any better.
I mean, it's funny the way people operate. Like I remember when Hereford, Worcester, and the West Midlands were kind of getting pretty big. We had loads of clubs. I used to travel to Telford, Stourport. All the way around. It's great, doing a lot of classes. And I remember we had quite a few instructors at the time, didn't we? There was maybe 10 or 12 or something like that, and we were building a full-time gym for us, weren't we? And we thought, right, well, all the instructors will come and help us and all the rest of it, and I think I was the only one who turned up, and and I was
they turned up to train, James.
They turned up to train, but I was like thinking, man, I built this place for you, and it was just it was a wonderful place, wasn't it? It was great, and but amazing how you try and benevolence just sort of bites you in the ass, and it's just like, I mean, this is what I don't get, right? This is the one thing I love. You got all these people talking about traditionalism and martial arts and how wonderful it is, and I'll bow towards my master and all the rest of it, but they will you need them. Everyone's your brother till the rent comes due, and it's just like you're so fake, man. You're so fake.
Yeah.
I for me, I'm not. I love. I love Lao Guo. I love training, and I want to be true to myself first and foremost.
I enjoy watching these certain people that have left our organisation. They've left Lao or been thrown out, whatever. They've left Lao. They've decided to go with someone that they see as is going to offer them something. So they get kicked to 7 bags by these people so that they can demonstrate on them, and then they bow to them, and they're on their knees bowing to them, asking them to join their organisation and all this kind of thing. And you just think to yourself, weren't you better than that? Weren't you better than that? And it's such a sad thing to watch, but it is hilarious as well. I do enjoy it.
It is funny. Like, correct me if I'm wrong though, traditionally, do you bow to a master in that way? I thought the only reason a lot of people bow was to honour the dead or the previous generations.
Yeah, it's bowing to your ancestors. 3 bows. Yeah, 3 bows. You sit up.
Yeah.
Go down. 3 bows. You sit up. Down. 3 bows. You sit up, and then you stand up and walk backwards.
Yeah. That's crazy. When you became guardians, did you not have like a ceremony?
We did that. We bowed to the ancestors of the style.
Did you bow to you didn't bow to Master Yao though?
We never bowed to Master Yao like that. He would never expect us to.
Right.
We'd never bow. He's not dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we have total respect for the ancestry of the style. And that's what you do, but you don't do that to a guy who has never taught you anything. Do you know what I mean?
It's funny though. It's
just all this people living on this traditional, and it is funny. It's funny to watch. Well, everyone to their own. They want to do that kind of thing.
I'm sure they get some. I'm sure they can sleep at night. Believing that. They're the next whatever. Bruce Lee. I don't know. But hey, we got to we better stop this. We're going down the rabbit hole.
We did a bit of bitching today, didn't we? We did a bit of bitching.
We did a bit.
Yeah,
we did a bit. That's not very humble of us. We're supposed to be like David Carradine, right? Forgiveness is
well, for anyone who's been listening to this, I apologise if it upsets you. Unless you're one of those people I've already talked about. And no, you want to live your life.
It's like therapy, isn't it? It's like therapy. We just get it all out. Why not?
Or maybe we treated it as therapy today.
Okay,
that's a good thing.
I love it. I just
but the forever looking for a new master, forever finding a way to justify your existence is always something that is going to be laughable to me. It is always, it's always going to be something that I will see. Well, so I decided to set up more clubs, but in a different place.
Well, we can only move forward.
Absolutely.
I don't know what that means. That's it. Shut up, James. Shut up. Right, Steve, gotta go. Thank you so much for joining us again, and guys, thanks again for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast, and we'll see you soon. Bye now.
Bye.
Assume I kick your little Beijing ass right now, man. I ain't scared of you. I know you know that little tricky shit. Come on.
Hi guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. If you like that and you want to find out more about us, you can head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or YouTube and find us under SJN Martial Arts. And also guys, this podcast is available on Podbean and iTunes. So until next time, take care of yourselves and we'll see you again on the Kung Fu Podcast.
Now, why doesn't somebody pull off 45 and bang, settle it?
No guns.